My awful boss stole my Super Bowl tickets that a very important client gifted me and lied about it. I closed the biggest account of my career last fall, a contract that single-handedly hit our region's annual target. And the client, a guy named Tobias who runs the whole thing and almost never deals with reps directly, was so happy he called me personally and said he was sending me a thank you. The thank you turned out to be 2 tickets to the Super Bowl, club level, with a note that said, "For the only person at your company who returns my calls." I was over the moon. I told exactly one person at work, my boss, Hollis, because he asked point blank what Tobias had sent after he saw the courier come in, and Hollis got this look I should have recognized. 2 days later, the tickets, which had been couriered to the office because I'd been traveling, were not in the mailroom, not at the front desk, not anywhere. And when I asked Hollis if he'd seen the envelope, he said, "Oh, those, yeah, I logged those as a corporate gift, company policy. Client gifts over a certain value belong to the company. I'll let you know how we end up distributing them." To himself, it turned out, because 3 weeks later, there was Hollis on his own social media, club level, at the game, with his brother-in-law, captioned "Perks of Leadership." And he had tagged the stadium and tagged the game and tagged, because he could not help himself, our company account, as if the tickets had been a corporate reward instead of something with my name on the courier slip. When I brought it to HR with the courier receipt showing the tickets addressed to me by name, Hollis told HR that there was no such policy in writing, which there wasn't. He'd made it up, but that, in his recollection, Tobias had sent the tickets to the company as a thank you to the team, and Hollis had simply made an executive decision. And because Hollis had been there 11 years and I'd been there too, his recollection was the one that counted. HR couldn't substantiate my version. I was furious in the useless, churning way you can only be when someone with more power has lied cleanly and gotten away with it. I almost quit. What stopped me was something small. About a month later, Tobias's annual contract came up for its quarterly review, the relationship I had personally built. And Hollis, riding high, told the regional director that he would personally manage the Tobias relationship going forward because it was too important to leave to a junior rep, and he took me off the account, my account, the one I'd closed. He wanted the credit and the client and the tickets, all of it. So I did the one thing he didn't expect, which was nothing. I said, "Okay, sure, makes sense," and I let him have it. The dumber he thinks I am, the more rope he'll hand me. I quietly made sure the formal handover documentation was thorough and dated and copied to the director. Every email, every note, a clean paper trail that established, without me saying a single accusatory word, exactly when Hollis had taken over the relationship and exactly what he'd inherited from me. Then I waited, because I knew something Hollis didn't. Tobias does not respond well to being handed off. The note on those tickets, "The only person at your company who returns my calls," wasn't a compliment to me, it was a complaint about everyone else, and Hollis was about to become everyone else. Sure enough, 2 weeks into Hollis personally managing the relationship, Tobias called the office, and I happened to be near the front desk, and I heard the receptionist say Hollis was in a meeting and could she take a message twice on 2 different days. The third time, Tobias didn't call the office. He called me, on my cell, the number from the note, and he said, "Why am I dealing with a guy who doesn't call me back? Where did you go?" And I told him, carefully, factually, that I'd been moved off his account, that I wasn't allowed to manage it anymore, and I left it there. No editorializing. There was a silence, and then Tobias said, in the flat voice of a man who controls a contract worth more than my boss's salary several times over, "Did he ever give you those tickets, by the way? I asked him last month if you enjoyed the game, and he said you couldn't make it and gave them to a colleague." And I realized Hollis had told the client, the actual client, that I'd declined the gift, which meant Hollis had not just stolen from me, he'd lied to the one man whose goodwill the entire account depended on. Tobias asked me to forward him anything in writing about who's been handling my account and when, and I told him I'd have to think about whether I could share internal documents. He said, "Take your time," then added, "I've got a call with your regional director Thursday about renewal. Big number this quarter, bigger than last year." Thursday was in 2 days. I sat there with my thumb over the forward button on a folder of perfectly organized emails that would either end my career or end Hollis's, and as I was deciding, a calendar invite popped up on my screen, sent by Hollis to the whole team, titled "Tobias Renewal Strategy, Thursday AM, Mandatory," and I started laughing, because Hollis didn't know the client had already called me, and I had 2 days to decide whether to walk into that meeting empty-handed or with everything. I went home that night and I didn't eat, didn't turn on the TV, just sat on my couch with my phone in my hand. I called Mika. She's been my best friend since college, and I told her everything, start to finish. When I finished, there was about 3 seconds of silence, and then Mika said, "So you have everything you need to bury him. What are you waiting for?" And I told her I wasn't waiting. I was calculating. Because here's the thing, if I just forward those internal emails to Tobias, every handover doc, every note, every timestamp, Hollis doesn't panic. Hollis goes to HR, goes to Alessandro, goes to whoever will listen, and says I leaked confidential internal documents to a client because I was angry about football tickets. He frames me as the bitter junior rep who couldn't handle a senior decision and went rogue. I get fired for cause. He survives. Mika pushed back hard. "You're overthinking this. Just send them." But I knew she was wrong on this one. Being right and being believed are 2 completely different things, and I had watched HR teach me that lesson already. I wasn't going to learn it twice. The next morning, Wednesday, I got to the office early. Right near the top of my inbox was a message from Alessandro, our regional director, sent to the full team at 6:47 a.m. It confirmed Thursday's renewal call with Tobias, 10 o'clock, conference room B, and at the bottom it said, Hollis will be leading the conversation as primary account manager. I read it twice. Around midday, I was walking back from the break room when Josephine, our receptionist, caught me in the hallway. She had this look on her face like she'd been thinking about whether to say something. "Hey," she said, "I don't know if this matters, but Tobias called again yesterday looking for Hollis. 3rd time this month I've taken a message. Hollis never called him back. I wrote it in the message log every time." I stopped walking. I asked her as calmly as I could if the message log was something she kept on file. She looked at me like I'd asked if water was wet. Every call, every message, date and time. That's my job. I thanked her and kept walking. Josephine had no idea what was happening between me and Hollis. She had no stake in this fight. She was just doing her job, and those records showed in black and white from a neutral third party that Hollis had ignored the most important client in our region 3 times in a single month. Hollis didn't even even know those logs existed in that form. Standing in the hallway outside the break room, it hit me that my whole strategy needed a shift. I didn't need to send Tobias the internal emails myself. I didn't need to be the one who put the knife in. What I needed was to create a situation where the truth came out in front of Alessandro, on the record, during a real business call, in a way that Hollis could not rewrite or spin or bury after the fact. The play wasn't to go around Hollis. It was to let Hollis walk into his own trap on Thursday morning. Late Wednesday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Text from Tobias. Still thinking about those documents? I typed back carefully. I want to handle this the right way. You'll have what you need by end of day Thursday. His response came through. A single word. Good. Wednesday evening, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and my printer, and I printed everything. Hard copies. The original courier receipt with my name on it, the dated handover emails, my personal notes from every interaction I'd ever had with Tobias. I built a timeline. I put all of it in a plain manila folder. I didn't plan to hand it to anyone. The folder was insurance. I called Mika again. We talked through the plan, and then she got quiet for a second and said, "Can I ask you something you're not going to like?" I told her to go ahead. What if Hollis already knows Tobias called you? What if someone told him? I didn't say anything for a long time. I honestly hadn't considered it. Mika was right to ask, because if Hollis had found out, everything changes. Hollis in damage control mode is a different animal. He might cancel the meeting altogether. He might call Alessandro first with a preemptive story. Or, and this was the one that scared me most, he might try to get me removed from the meeting entirely. I told Mika I didn't think anyone had told him, but I couldn't be sure. She said, "Just be ready for him to try something before the meeting even starts." Thursday morning, I got to the office at 8:15. The meeting was at 10. The folder was in my bag. At 8:45, I heard footsteps behind me and then a voice, casual, easy. "Hey." I turned around and there was Hollis, coffee in one hand. "About the Tobias call this morning," he said. "I think it's best if you sit this one out. It's a senior level conversation. Don't want to confuse the client with too many voices." My chest got tight. Not panic, just the feeling of something clicking into place. This was exactly what Mika had warned me about 12 hours ago. Hollis was trying to cut me out. I kept my voice level. The calendar invite said mandatory for the whole team. Alessandro sent it. Hollis's smile stayed exactly where it was, but his eyes changed. "I'll talk to Alessandro," he said. "Don't worry about it." And he walked away. I sat at my desk for 10 minutes. I didn't move. Then I stood up and walked to Alessandro's office. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. I just said, "Hey, Hollis mentioned I might not be needed on the Tobias call. I just wanted to confirm with you directly since you sent the invite." Alessandro's face did this thing where his eyebrows came together slowly. "No," he said. "I want the full team. Tobias specifically asked that everyone who's touched the account be present. That includes you. Hollis knows that." I nodded. I said thank you. I walked out. As I went back to my desk, I let the full weight of what had just happened settle on me. First, Tobias had specifically requested that I be in the room. Second, Hollis had lied about having the authority to remove me from the meeting, which meant Hollis was scared. I sat back down at my desk and I pulled the folder out of my bag and set it flat on the surface in front of me. At 9:30, my inbox pinged from Hollis, sent only to me. The subject line said, "Quick align before the call." I opened it. "Quick note, I spoke with Tobias yesterday to prep for the renewal, and everything is in great shape. Just want to make sure we're aligned in the meeting. Let me do the talking. This is a relationship I've been nurturing, and I don't want mixed signals." I read it once. I read it again. He spoke with Tobias yesterday. He did not speak with Tobias yesterday. I knew he didn't, because Josephine had a message log showing Tobias called and Hollis never called back. And because Tobias had called me himself and told me Hollis was a ghost. He was pre-building a narrative. Every word was a brick in a wall he was building between himself and the truth, and he didn't realize the wall was made of paper. I forwarded the entire message to my personal email account. Then I did the second thing. I picked up my phone, opened my text thread with Tobias, and typed 6 words. "Just confirming, did you speak with Hollis yesterday about the renewal?" I sent it. The reply came less than a minute later. "No, haven't heard from him in 3 weeks." "Why?" I didn't reply. The facts were doing all the pushing on their own. I screenshotted the exchange. I emailed it to myself. If the folder on my desk was insurance, this was the receipt that proved the house had already burned down. Hollis just didn't know he was standing in the ashes. At 9:50, the room started to fill. Alessandro walked in first, then 2 other reps from the team, then Hollis. He came in like he was hosting a dinner party. Upright, smiling, a stack of printouts in his hand that he fanned out in front of his seat like props in a one-man show. He sat down across from Alessandro and looked around the room like a man who was exactly where he was supposed to be. I walked in last. I took the corner seat. I set my folder flat on the table in front of me, closed. I didn't touch it again. At 9:58, Hollis leaned toward Alessandro, close enough that it felt almost private, but loud enough that every person in the room could hear him, and said, "I caught up with Tobias yesterday. He's feeling great about renewal. This should be smooth." Alessandro nodded. "Good," he said. "Let's keep it tight." I said nothing. The clock hit 10 o'clock. The speakerphone rang. Alessandro hit answer. "This is Alessandro. We've got the full team here. Tobias, thanks for making time." Tobias's voice came through the speaker clear and steady. "Thanks everyone." There was no small talk. "Before we discuss renewal numbers, I want to clear something up. I've had some trouble reaching your team over the past month, and I want to make sure I understand the current account structure." Hollis jumped in before anyone else could breathe. "Absolutely, Tobias. I've been personally overseeing your account. I think we spoke yesterday about where things stand." There was a pause on the line, maybe 2 seconds. Then Tobias spoke, and his tone was the same, polite, professional, but there was something under it now. "We didn't speak yesterday, Hollis. I haven't heard from you in about 3 weeks. I've left messages with your receptionist on 3 separate occasions. None were returned." The room went still. I watched Alessandro's head turn slowly toward Hollis. Hollis opened his mouth, then he closed it. Then he smiled. "I may be mixing up my calls, busy week, but we're absolutely on top of your account." Tobias didn't let it go. "I want to be direct. When I signed this contract last fall, I signed it because of the rep who built the relationship with me. I was told he moved on to other priorities, but when I called your office recently, he was still there. And when I reached him directly, he told me he'd been taken off my account. I'd like to understand why." Alessandro looked at Hollis. "Hollis, you told me you were taking this over because it needed senior management. What's Tobias referring to?" Hollis tried to hold it together. "This is just a miscommunication. I transitioned the account to ensure continuity. That's when I spoke for the first time." I kept my voice low. "That's not accurate. I was removed from the account entirely. I have the handover documentation dated and copied to you, Alessandro, from 6 weeks ago. I opened the folder. I slid the dated handover summary across the table. Alessandro picked it up. He read it. I watched his face change. Then Tobias spoke again. I'll add one more thing. When I sent those Super Bowl tickets last fall as a personal thank you to your rep, I followed up with Hollis a month later to ask if he'd enjoyed the game. Hollis told me he couldn't make it and had given them to a colleague. Then I saw Hollis's own social media post at the game, club level, with someone I don't know, tagging your company. So I'm asking plainly, were those tickets, which I sent with a handwritten note addressed to a specific person, given to that person? The silence in that room was physical. Hollis's face lost everything. Those were handled according to company policy on client gifts. This is really an internal matter. Alessandro cut him off. His voice was flat and hard. There is no company policy on client gifts. I would know. I wrote the handbook. He turned to me. Do you have the courier receipt? I pulled it from the folder. My name, Tobias's name, the date, all of it right there in black and white. Alessandro read it. He set it down slowly. He looked at Hollis. We're going to pause this call and reconvene with Tobias separately. Hollis, I need you in my office in 5 minutes. Before the line disconnected, Tobias said one last thing. I want to be clear. My renewal decision is going to depend on who I'm working with going forward. I think you know who I mean. The line clicked off. Hollis stood up. He gathered his printouts, his color charts, his props, and his hands were shaking so badly the papers rattled against each other. He walked out of the conference room without looking at a single person. Alessandro stayed seated. He read through the handover documents again, slowly, page by page, and then he looked up at me and said, stay available today. I'm going to need your version of everything from the beginning. I nodded. I didn't smile. I closed the folder. By Friday, Hollis was placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. Alessandro called me into his office that same morning and told me the Tobias account was mine again, effective immediately. Tobias signed the renewal the following week for a bigger number than the previous year and sent a note that said, same deal as before. You answer, I sign. I never got the Super Bowl tickets back. That game was already played. But I got the account, the relationship, and something Hollis never had, which was the knowledge that none of it was borrowed or stolen or inherited. Mika called me that Friday night and said, so, was it worth the wait? And I told her every single day of it. 3 weeks into managing the Tobias account again, a manila inter-office envelope landed on my desk with no sender listed, only my name printed on the front in block letters. Inside was a single page from what looked like a printed expense report dated 4 years ago, the kind you'd pull from an old audit file. The vendor name on the line item was a charter jet company I didn't recognize. The dollar amount was high enough that I read it twice. The justification field said, Client Entertainment Tobias Group. The approver signature at the bottom was Hollis's. The card number used was Alessandro's. Stapled to the back was a yellow sticky note in handwriting I didn't recognize. 2 lines. The first said, Tobias never flew that day. The second said, ask the receptionist who used to work here before Josephine.